Um, my name is Katie Wysocki, and I serve as the Assistant Director in the Career Enrichment Network. We so appreciate Center Helps joining us this afternoon. This beautiful afternoon, the sun is out and shining down on our 2 feet of snow, it feels like. So today they're going to go over their resources, tell us a little bit about the organization and some opportunities for students to engage. But first, I want to introduce our speakers. Candace is with us. She has worked as the program manager at Center Help since May of 2019. She received her degree in public relations and marketing from Virginia Tech and her master's in public administration with a focus on nonprofit management from Penn State. Her position includes recruiting, training, outreach, program development, and management. Allie is joining us. She has been a hotline counselor with Center Help since August of 2019. She is a biobehavioral major with a minor in rehabilitation and human services, and her career goals are to attend graduate school for genetic counseling. Julia is also with us and has been a hotline counselor with Center Help since January of 2021, so just this last month. She is a psychology major with a minor in human development and family studies. And Elena, you're joining us as well. I apologize, I don't have a bio for you, but thank you for being here.
That's okay, yeah. I am one of the basic needs case managers at Center Helps. I've been here for almost exactly a year, as of like a week ago. My background is actually in nursing. I got my bachelor's degree in nursing from Hope College in Michigan.
Thank you, welcome. So Candace, I'm going to let you take over from here. I'll monitor the incoming participants. I see we had 1 or 2 come in, and the Q&A as well.
Thank you. I apologize for all the tabs. I know it stresses a lot of people out. I'm sorry. Thank you all for coming. So like Katie said, I'm Candace Tice and I'm the program manager. So we're going to talk about a little bit about who we are, what we do, and some opportunities for you all to get involved. And I really like a conversation as opposed to a presentation. So if you have any questions, just ask. Unmute yourself. I like to hear voices instead of just chats, but if you want to throw it in the chat, that's okay too. So we're just going to talk about who we are first. So we are Center Helps. Quick show of like thumbs up if you've ever heard of Center Helps before. Love it, Julia. So we are and Bryn. So we are a nonprofit in-state college. We've been here for about 50 years. And our goal is basically to just like serve people in any way that we can. Our mission statement is like any help at any time. And our goal is to empower people to make positive change in their life. And that is through providing them with resources and support and the knowledge that they can do it and that they can move forward in their lives. So we have many different ways of doing that, but that's kind of our overall mission. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about our history, if I can figure out how to move my thing. Oh, there we go. Technology, am I right? So we started in 1972 by Penn State students. They were like true blue hippies in the 70s. And their goal was to provide non-biased factual information to people at the time. It was about drug information. So they would call anytime and they would get non-biased factual information about drugs. And then though our mission has changed throughout the years, that information or that goal has kind of always stayed with us. We always provide non-biased information. We allow people to make their own decisions, and we want to empower them to move forward in their life in a positive way. So in 1995, we became On Drugs, and we added a crisis intervention and general resource referral. In 2001, we were Wellspring, and then in 2017, we became Center for Community Resources. So a lot of people will still call us that. And then we are now Center Helps. So if you hear Center County for Community Resources, that's us. There's like lots of center things. There's Center House, Center Safe, all of that. All of us are great. We're wonderful, but we are Center Helps. So if you ever get confusion about that, it's okay. People call and are like, who am I talking to? I'm like, this is Center Helps. So we have 4 key program areas. We have our 24-hour hotline, which is our biggest program, and that's what I'm in charge of. The volunteer training, which goes hand in hand since most of our counselors are volunteers. The basic needs case management program, which Elena is in charge of, and she's going to talk a little bit about later. And then our educational programming, like our YOP program, which you all may have heard of because it serves Penn State pretty largely. Okay, so like I said, if you have any questions, just let me know. But I'm going to talk about our hotline. As like I said, it's our main program area. So it is 24/7, 7 days a week. And so before coronavirus, there was somebody physically in this office all the time. I'm talking Christmas, New Year's, 3 a.m., there's somebody here. And that's the case is that we still answer the phone at all of those times. But now we have remote capabilities as a result of the pandemic. So that is something like you may have heard me and Katie just talking about that earlier about, the world changing a little bit. But we are still available 24/7. We also have text chat services, so you can text or chat if you're unable to call. All of our counseling services are totally free. We have crisis intervention. I'll talk about it a little bit later, but we are a National Suicide Prevention Lifeline call center. We provide information and referral. We have a database of over 700 referrals, so that's local organizations as well as national organizations. And a lot of our clients seek basic needs, which Elena's going to talk about, and that's like food, rent, utility, things like that. We also work really closely with Center Safe, which is the Women's Resource Center, and Alcoholics Anonymous, and we provide the off-hour support line for a few local counseling services. So most of our calls are basic needs calls, which keeps Elena very busy. So about 60% of our calls in 2019 to 2020, so the last fiscal year, was basic needs. And I'm not going to talk too much about that because I'm going to let her tell you what basic needs are, but we get a lot of those calls. We also have counseling. So sometimes people just call us because they have a bad day, right? And they need somebody to talk to. Crisis intervention would be if somebody is having like a health crisis risk, like they have thoughts of suicide and they need intervention. And then other calls are sometimes people just need somebody to help shovel their driveway in this 2 feet of snow or something like that. And we're totally able to help people with all needs, no matter how big or how small. So I kind of hinted at this. So we work with the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline, which is that national 1-800 number, and it will in 2 years be a 3-digit number, 988, just like 911. So now it'll be 988 for mental health crises. So this partnership began in 2018. So all calls, if you call that 1-800 number, will be routed to our call center. And 99% of our calls were de-escalated, making emergency rescue unnecessary, which is our overall goal. We approach crisis calls with the least invasive means possible. So we try to de-escalate the situation. But then, of course, we do prioritize people's safety as well. We also provide emergency services. So we do provide hotel and bus vouchers to people in need. So that's like if they have no place to stay, we could give them a hotel voucher or a bus voucher to get to someplace where they have like a place to stay and a job and things like that. So that's something that we do, but we provide it like not very often, but that is a resource that's here if you know anybody who's in need of things like that. And we work with the State College Food Bank. So anybody who needs a food bank referral comes to us and registers. And we provide the food bank on a yearly basis. We check for eligibility, and then we send them to the food bank, and then they can get food for a full year once a month. So that's a really great resource and has been very, very helpful. Our food need has increased so much since the start of the pandemic. I'm sure that you've seen that on the news about people like around the block in different states like needing food, and it's the same here. So we're really happy to be able to partner with the State College Food Bank and provide that resource. And in conjunction with the State College Food Bank, we provide a 24-hour emergency food pantry. So let's say somebody can't get to the food bank because it's late or it's the weekend, or maybe they're not eligible for the food bank, but they need food. We have food in our building that we're able to give to people all the time. So if somebody needs food late at night or sometime when it's snowing and the food bank is closed, they can come to us and we'll make sure that we provide that food for them. So that's a really great resource as well to tell friends. All right, so the last part I'm going to talk about is the volunteer training. So we have such great volunteers. Allie and Julia are here, but they are just 2 wonderful volunteers of 44 that we have right now, which is a lot. And so our volunteers do a lot for the hotline. We would not be able to staff the hotline without them. But in order to be a hotline volunteer, they have to go through a pretty rigorous training. So it's 7 weeks, about 120 hours total. And that training focuses on mental health, substance abuse, counseling skills. We have speakers from organizations in the community come in, Alcoholics Anonymous. We have a grief counselor come in. So basically, we just want to prepare our counselors for like any type of conversation that they may have with somebody in need on the line. We really focus on empathic listening and reflective listening. And after that training is completed, we expect our volunteers to commit about 340 hours with us on the line. And that normally shakes down to about a year on the hotline, but we've had some volunteers that have been with us for over 10 years. We have a beautiful volunteer named Gail who's been with us for 10 years, and she is about to have her 80th birthday. So we love our volunteers. I could gush about them for forever, but we are on a limited time, so I'll stop. But we have added the applied suicide intervention and skills training to our training. And so ASSIST is the gold standard in suicide intervention. I'm actually a certified ASSIST trainer. So it's a 2-day intensive program, and it's like a big certification. It typically costs about $250, but we give it to all of our volunteers for free. So if you're ever interested in going into any sort of like human service, or if you're interested in being a teacher or anything, this would be a really good thing to have the skills in. And we also offer them to the community, to police officers and things like that. So we're very, very happy to add ASSIST to our programming. So I know that I talked a lot, and I have been told in the past that I talk really quickly, so I apologize. But if anybody has any questions, let me know. If not, I will pass it over to Elena. Any questions? Okay, if you think of them, just let me know. All right, here's Elena.
All right, beautiful. Yeah, so thank you, Candace. So I'll talk specifically about what the Basic Needs Case Management Program is. Yeah, we can flip to the next slide here. So overall, what we do is, and I get to say we now because it's not just me anymore. Thanks to the Rona, we've added actually a second case manager, and we've really been able to expand the program quite a bit in response to the need. So when we're talking about basic needs, we're talking about utilities, vehicle repairs, which kind of makes us unique because there's not a lot of other agencies that can help with that. Medical assistance, shelter, which like Candace mentioned, the hotel vouchers, budgeting, rental assistance. It's been interesting in the past several months with all of the kiddos going to remote learning. I never thought that I would be helping out with Comcast bills, but we do consider that an essential basic need, because if you're a low-income family and your child requires the internet to go to school, then yeah, that's valid. Like, we're going to try to help out with that. So overall, what the program is about is helping individuals and families who are in crisis to provide them with short-term case management to really try to empower them to be in a better position moving forward. So what we do is we get referrals. Most of our referrals do come from the 24-hour Center Helps hotline, but we also take referrals from outside agencies as well. The county government and other nonprofits all send clients our way. So what we do when we get a referral is we will then take them through an intake. And what that intake process is we go through, we have a really in-depth conversation with our clients. We really try to assess their needs and their situation and all the factors that are impacting where they're at. And then we try to make it a therapeutic space as well. We try to use some of those counseling skills that have been trained into us. I went through the hotline training program as well, and it's so valuable. Not just for, like a suicide situation, but even just those who are just going through this tremendous stress of maybe facing an eviction, to utilize those counseling skills like our counselors use on the 24/7 hotline. So we try to make it really therapeutic in that way. And then we also include, when the situation is appropriate, some budgeting counseling, because it really is about that core value of empowerment. We don't just want to tell them what they need to do and send them on their way with some money. We really want to make them feel like they're in a good position to understand their situation better and feel like they know how to help themselves in the future, and like they feel like they can do that. So we'll go through that intake process, which used to be in our office and is now remote, which I miss. I do miss seeing clients very much, but it's great that we've been able to adapt and still provide all of our services in these times. Hopefully I'll be able to see them again someday. So after we go through that intake process, and then I might try to connect them with some resources such as food stamps, the food bank, if the hotline hasn't already helped them with that, WIC, different types of help like that that's out there. And then depending on the need, I may try to connect them with funding. I package funding through local churches. So what that means is there's a variety of churches in State College and the Center County area that are able to provide like $100 to $200 per household. So if I have a family that's in crisis that comes to me with an eviction notice and they need $500 of rent to prevent them from being evicted, I'll call up like those 5 different churches, and they each provide $100 in rental assistance to kind of help that family be empowered to move through that time. So we do that. And there's been a lot of changes in response to coronavirus. Not only have we, moved all of our services to be remote, but we've also just seen such a change in the demographic that we're serving. It used to be the most average sort of client I was seeing would be like someone who is maybe on Social Security income, so just very low income, kind of regularly, like that's where they're at, and they have something like a hospitalization or a car accident, and that's kind of why they're in this crisis situation. Now, the most average type of client is somebody who is actually kind of used to more income than our Social Security folks. They were working jobs, a lot of times pretty good jobs, and now they've lost their job because of coronavirus, or they've had their hours severely reduced. A lot of folks from the service industries. And so that's definitely the most frequent type of client that we're serving at this time. And we can flip to the next slide here to keep talking about the coronavirus changes. So this is kind of the fun part to talk about. In fiscal year 19 to 20, so basically from July of 2019 to June of 2020, the Basic Needs Case Management Program put together that $59,000 of funds to help clients with those needs, such as rental and utility assistance. And then in the past 6 months, from July of 2020 to present, we have put together $183,000 of funding, which is pretty crazy to think about. And a lot of that is because in response to the coronavirus, a lot of new funding sources have opened up. There's new private funding that's available through the United Way for families and individuals who've been impacted by COVID. There's been government programs like we've seen with the CARES Relief Program, and there's been other grants as well, such as through the Center Foundation. So there is more funding available, and there's just such a tremendous amount of increased need. Because all those other folks that we were serving last year, they're still around and they still need help as they have things come up in their lives. But now we just have this totally new population that we weren't serving before that now does need assistance. And we're seeing needs kind of stretched out over time. It used to be like our services were one time, we help people get over a hump, and then they're good to go. But now we have these families who they've lost their job, and we know that the economy right now is brutal and people are having a very difficult time returning to work. So actually a lot of times we're working with people for several months, which is totally new to this program. We were never ongoing services before. So that's just kind of a shift in the dynamic. And then we have really expanded. I'm so grateful that we have a second full-time basic needs case manager. She's been really amazing and done a really great job. We are bringing on an intern who's also doing a really amazing job. And we're hopeful to keep providing internship opportunities to get experience with our program in the future. And then just to talk about too, how this program really does integrate with the hotline. The hotline is really the heart and soul of this program, because that is not only where we get the majority of our referrals, but they actually are like, basically all 44 of those volunteers are like our other team member, because they really do help us with that first step of gathering the data. When they are on those calls, they're going through a list of questions. They're really helping to start that assessment process, and also giving the client information and referral right there on that first phone call. So really they're the beginning of the process. They set up a foundation for the program to be successful. So we definitely couldn't do what we do without them. And kind of speaking of those calls that the hotline gets, does anyone want to guess what our most frequent basic need call subject is? Okay, big reveal. We can flip. So it is rent, and then also food, because we are the gateway to the State College Food Bank. But rent has been huge, and that's definitely been the biggest need that we've been working on by a huge margin the past couple of months during the pandemic. The rental assistance has just been, it's been really challenging. Center County is really blessed in that we do have a really good network of nonprofits, and we kind of think of ourselves and our hotline as serving as the hub for that network, because people can call us and we help them to kind of understand all those other resources that are available. And compared to some of the surrounding counties, we really are blessed in this community. But along with that, we also have some of the very highest housing and rental costs compared to the other more rural Pennsylvania counties by quite a significant margin. Housing is just expensive here. It really is. And so it's been really challenging, especially during this pandemic, for people facing those needs. So that is kind of the program in a nutshell, and kind of how the hotline ties into it. Does anybody have questions about that right now? Cool. Well, if you think of them, then yeah, we'll keep on rolling, but thank you.
I don't know why this is hard for me sometimes, but I think this is Allie. There we go.
Yes. Okay.
Take it away.
So, like mentioned earlier, my name's Allie and I am a hotline counselor. I'm also a YOP instructor. So YOP stands for Youthful Offenders Program. And what it is a court mandated program that educates students on alcohol and drugs. Have you guys ever heard of YOP at all? No. Okay, that's probably a good thing. Usually YOP is associated with people who've been cited with an underage. So they'll be assigned to take this class usually by the court. And it's taught by other Center Helps volunteers over 4 days, 4 hours each. So it's a total of 16 hours. And we work really closely with AA, State College Police Department, CRC, and basically the whole goal of the program is to provide like a safe, non-judgmental environment for discussion. We're not here to like yell at anybody or anything like that. We just want to educate and give enough information so that people can make good decisions moving forward. So we are being researched by Penn State to study like effectiveness. And basically so far they found that there's a reduction in recidivism, which just means that people who take the program usually are less likely to get in trouble again. So we're doing good. And it would be cool to offer this to students who aren't like cited with anything just as a preventative thing. So we're looking into that a little bit. And we do work strongly with the community. Like I mentioned, there's a bunch of different programs that we work with as well.
Hi guys, I'm Julia. I'm a hotline counselor. And so like Candace and Elena mentioned, the hotline really is kind of like the heart and soul of the organization, even though we do so many other wonderful things. But we also have internships as well, which can count for class credit. And right now we're kind of expanding on different types of internships, like in the fundraising and outreach areas or like the marketing area. So we have that going on. And then we just recently got it approved for a Center Helps Club at Penn State. Brand new, just got approved. And what it does is kind of functions to bridge the gap between Center Helps, the agency, and then Penn State students. So you have to be a Penn State student to join, but you don't have to be a Center Helps volunteer or staff member. So if that's something where like maybe you can't make the time commitment, but you're still really like interested in helping out the community and getting that experience, that would be a really great way to get involved. So yeah, we're having quite a lot of different opportunities other than hotline counselor positions, but yeah, that's what we have.
So now I'm just going to open up the floor to allow Julia and Allie to talk a little bit about their experience as volunteers, because most of you are Penn State, I think all of you are Penn State students. So hearing from their perspective, I think is more valuable than hearing from an old lady like me. So if you guys would go ahead and tell your story. Allie, would you like to start?
Sure. And Candace is not old, she's lying. So I heard about Center Helps from one of my psych classes. They presented in one of my psych classes. And initially, I think I didn't apply right away because I was worried about the time commitment. It can seem a little daunting, but it's honestly just very doable. And if it's something you're passionate about, it's not going to feel like that heavy. But I wanted to volunteer at Center Helps because I'm sure like a lot of people, I've had like family and friends who have struggled with mental health. And I really wanted to educate myself a lot more. And I wanted to give back to State College community because it's a second home for me. I love it here. So I trained in fall of 2019. So it's been, I guess, a little over a year or so. Time has flown by. So I've been on the hotline, I guess, like every week ever since. It's crazy. I worked through the summer. There was a group of us that continued to man the hotline during the summer with the pandemic. And at that point, I took an overnight every week, which is not something you have to do, but I volunteered to do it because I love working the hotline. And the whole point of that is just that I have received a lot of calls of like literally every variety. So if you have any questions on what type of calls we get, I have many stories to tell. But yeah, as a YOP instructor, I like that I've been able to make connections with students and facilitate discussion. overall, I think working at Center Helps, I've learned a lot about myself. I've learned a lot about State College community. I think I've become a better, more empathetic person. And I got the opportunity to work with literally the nicest people in the world. I'm trying to think of like a good, like touching moment to share. I feel like I've had a lot. I kind of wish I wrote them down. There was, I think, my very first overnight shift that I ever worked. I talked with a transgender woman, and she was just going through it. She wanted to like tell her story to somebody. She felt like she didn't really have anybody to talk to. And I think she was worried about telling her kids because she hadn't come out to her kids yet. So we talked, I think, for like 3 hours, which is a very long call, but it was worth every second. She was such a gem. And we just talked through different options, like coping mechanisms, ways to like start a conversation, stuff like that. But I remember at the end of the call, she said that like she felt like she was chatting with a girlfriend, which just always stuck with me because that's like what we're here for, like to be a listening ear to people. And a lot of times I think people look at a crisis line like every situation's intense and like crazy. And sometimes that's the case, but a lot of times people just need somebody to talk to. And that's such a huge need in the world that I think isn't always expressed. So that's what we are here for, just to like listen and help people through a difficult time. But it's the best decision I've made at Penn State. So if you guys have any questions about like the time commitment, the training, what we do, like what kind of calls we answer, my experience at all, please let me know. I'm like literally could talk about it for hours, but I will pass it to Julia.
Yeah, I mean, Allie like really nailed it. Like she said, like basically like everything there is to say about working at Center Helps. But the reason why I personally got involved is because I do plan on going to graduate school. And if any of you are in the psych field, I'm sure you know that like it can be really challenging to get that hands-on counseling experience. It's almost nearly impossible. So I thought that that was really interesting that Center Helps provided that opportunity. And something I'm really interested in is crisis intervention, because I do want to go into school psychology. And I know that in the future, there's going to be a lot of like students who are going through, you know, problems at home or mental health issues. And I really just wanted to learn how to de-escalate situations. And that's basically what we do on the hotline. And it's really taught me a lot just about, like how to be a person, just to listen and just to understand that like there are other people in the world who are struggling, and you know, no matter how perfect your life may seem, like everyone has their struggles. And it really also kind of opened my eyes to just the like differences in the different areas. I mean, I'm not from State College, so I was completely unaware of like the like food insecurity or like levels of homelessness in State College. And I feel like that's something that's like really not like well known in the community. So it really opened my eyes to that and kind of made me think about like, well, if it's like that here, like it's probably like that in a lot of other places too. So it really just kind of gave me a really good sense of how people might be struggling like in all different areas. And honestly, like just like Ali said, I really love it because everyone that works here is the kindest person on the planet. I've made some like amazing friends, and we're all just a very close knit, strong, like tight community. And we're just like a really happy bunch. And I really love being around like these people and working with them. And I'm trying to think of like a really touching moment. Like Allie, I've had a lot of like kind of crazy calls, especially in the beginning of my training. I don't know if I mentioned, I've been here for about a year now. But I think one that really sticks out to me is I had an older man who was, I think he said it was about like 66 years old. And he called me and he was asking for some like resources for his son, because his son was addicted to heroin. And he was asking for like resources for himself to go to like parental like support groups, counseling, things like that. And so I gave him the resources and he was like the kindest man ever. He was so appreciative. And a lot of it honestly was like counseling, because he did get very emotional on the call, cried and everything. And it made me realize that like, yeah, you're here to kind of help people solve their problem at times, but also like you need to be a listening ear. And he was just so thankful. And he's like, I'm so sorry for crying. And I'm like, no, like, don't worry about it. Like, I'm happy to help you. Like, I'm glad you called in. And that was something that just like really touched me, because you can tell that like these people like have issues and they really care about themselves and their families. And, you know, there's nothing wrong with needing a little help just to get yourself back in a better place. So that was a really touching call. And I'll never forget that, because he was just very thankful and very sweet. And I was so happy to help him.
Guys, that made me feel like all like warm and fuzzy inside. Oh, thanks for sharing. Appreciate it. So this is our contact information. We are located at the little house off the edge of Fraser Street, down past Target. If you ever need us for anything, you can call our hotline at any of these numbers 24/7. We will be there. And you can go to our website for information on volunteering opportunities as well as fundraising, or also if you just want to share our information with somebody who may be in need. So that's all of that. Does anybody have any questions before we go? Well, if you decide that you do have questions, oh, is there something in the chat? No, I got excited. If you decide that you do have questions, you can reach out to me. I'll put my email in the chat if you have anything about Center Helps or if you want to volunteer.
I actually do have like a quick question. I'm just curious of like what a shift looks like when you're working for the hotline, like how many calls you get, or if there's times that you don't get any, and like just stuff like that.
I will let Julia or Allie take that away since they are our volunteers.
Yeah, I can answer that, and then Allie can kind of chime in. I'm sure I'll forget something, but honestly, it really depends on the type of day. Usually like towards like the morning and like early afternoons, it's usually like basic needs heavy, like not a ton of counseling calls. Usually people calling about like rent or like a food bank referral. And then like as we get like closer to like 5 p.m. and then the night and overnight shifts, those are typically when more counseling calls come in. But yeah, it honestly just really depends on like the shift you're working. Like I know when I first started out, I worked, I think from like 12 to 2, and like that was a pretty busy shift because it was just like midday, like people were probably on their lunch breaks, like calling like while they're at work, stuff like that. So it really just depends, but there usually are a few people working on the line at a time, so you don't exactly get overloaded with calls, but you do have like a probation period if you work on the hotline where you are supposed to answer all the calls that come in, but it's really just a time of day thing. I wouldn't say that like you get like hundreds of calls to where like you're super like overwhelmed and like juggling calls, but it does happen where you have like maybe a like busier shift. So it really all depends.
Yeah, I totally agree. It's hard to predict. I will say, if you're curious, that the weekly commitment is 4 hours a week. So your shifts can either be 4 hours long, or like if you split it up, like 2 hours one day, 2 hours another day. I agree with everything Julia said. It totally depends. Like, and sometimes basic needs calls can turn into counseling calls if you're just like chatting and like, how are you feeling about that? Like, that's kind of tough. And then it like spirals into something else. I've gotten like counseling calls at like 2 p.m. Like, it's really hard to judge. So yeah, who knows? It's unpredictable.
I will say that our call volume has increased significantly since the coronavirus. So we had this weird thing where when it first hit in March, we were thinking we were going to get super slammed, and then it went very low. We didn't have very many calls, but now we have more calls than we've ever had. Like in the 50 years, I think we have more calls than we've ever had currently right now. So your shift will never be boring, but you'll always be supported because like Julia said, we typically always have at least 2 counselors on at a time. So you aren't like dealing with it all at once.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Does anybody else have any questions?
Yes. Hi, I'm Julia.
Hi, Julia.
Katie. I have a question about the internships with Center Helps. Okay, so I'm not technically a psych major, but I'm looking to follow a kind of psych path after graduation. And it doesn't say online like when your internship applications are due or like the specific things you're looking for. So I was wondering if you could clarify.
Absolutely. So thank you for that question. You don't need to be a psych major. We like to have people from all different majors and all different interests. Our main thing is if you want to help people, then you have come to the right place. So we have interns every semester. So if you applied now, that would be for the summer, but then you can also apply like at the end of summer for fall. So all of that. So typically, if you are interested in working, let's say in the spring, then you would apply at the end of the fall semester. And so our application is rolling. So if you know that you would like to intern next spring, like that's a year far away and you would be crazy organized, but you could even put your application in now if you wanted to. But if you know that you would like to be here for the summer, then you can put an application in now. And so traditionally our interns work very heavily on like behind the scenes nonprofit stuff. So a lot of paperwork, a lot of data entry, a lot of things like that, but also direct client work. So you work with clients who need food bank referrals, you work with YOP students. But we also are expanding our internship opportunities to be more specialized. So if you're interested in social work, then you would work more directly with Elena to do case management. If you're interested in like fundraising, then you would work with our executive director and do marketing and stuff like that. So you can kind of like, being a small organization has its ups and downs, but one of the ups is that you can pretty much find an opportunity to explore whatever skill you're interested in. So you can really make this opportunity and the internship your own. If there's something that you're interested in, we'd love to have you do it because we are a very small team and we can use all the help that we can get.
Thank you.
Thank you. What year are you, Julia?
I'm a junior.
A junior? Yeah, great. So yeah, if you have any other questions, please just let me know. But yeah, visit that website as well. So does anybody else?
I have a question. Do interns go through similar training as the hotline callers? No.
No. So our interns, like they have like a kind of like, we have everybody who is here does like a really quick empathetic listening type of training, but typically the hotline counseling, no, that's separate. So that is more if you want to be a hotline counselor and then you have to commit to the 340 hours after that. But the internship, like let's say you're only here for like another semester or something and you still want to be involved in Center Helps, that's when I would recommend the internship because it's not as much of a time commitment. But if you're interested in counseling, then I would recommend the hotline.
Any other questions? Candace, thank you, and everyone, Julia, Allie, Elena, thank you so much for being here. We really appreciate your time, and I know the students that will be watching this later really appreciate the information you're sharing. So thank you so much. We appreciate it.
Well, thank you for having us. You all have a great day. Be safe in the snow.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us.